you all for being here. It's a treat to share what we've learned with NENPA and its members. As Linda alluded to, we're going to talk about how to use data to recapture and get ready for post-COVID times whenever they arrive. Our reality, I put the word reality and then ha, because it is not real out there, right, ladies and gentlemen? If you're an operator, you've had campaigns canceled or reduced, and there's really not much you can do about it. Stores have closed and they've opened and they may have been reclosed if you're like we are here in California. It's almost impossible to get appointments. Businesses don't want to see people, right? Especially if they're closed. At many of our organizations, there have been reductions in forces. We have been forced, in most cases, to work remotely. There have been mandatory furloughs at some companies, and we, all of us, have been asked to do things that we didn't know we were ever going to have to do. And in some cases, while things were opening up, they're locking down again. So uncertainty is the word that seems to prevail again and again and again. It has upended our world. So the company I represent, Pulse Research, and I decided to do one thing. Let's try to eliminate the uncertainty. So we ran a survey. We started it in mid-March. It is the COVID Impact Survey. We asked press associations, regional associations, clients. We have 500 newspaper clients around North America to participate. And participation means ads ran in the newspapers, online, through whatever channels they distributed the ads. And it invited readers and website visitors, again, all of our users, to answer a survey about their shopping intent. So it's a shopping survey. Of this, Pulse normally does this in the fall, gives all of our clients results in January, but we did this in March, and we asked the question about shopping over the next 3 months, different from our annual survey where we ask about annual shopping. The reason we did this was simply to try to eliminate some of its uncertainty. The survey that we posted with all clients in January had been rendered irrelevant by the COVID pandemic we're all navigating through. As you can see, the sample is actually just over 29,000 now. And we have probably 15 newspapers who had their own data. They promoted enough to get their own sample. We have a New England sample over 1,000, so our minimum sample requirement is 400. We had 18 states with their own data. So the clients would get their state data, their local community data, or if they didn't have adequate sample in those two categories, regional data. We sliced the region, the country into 10 regions. And no surprise, when you have a sample of that size, you can do all sorts of subsets of it. So we have a suburban sample, we have a senior sample, alt weekly sample, business pub sample. We have 2 or 3 major groups that have their own sample. Broadcast, rural, again, almost anything you can ask for. Because the question we started in March said, what do you intend to do over the next 3 months? That took us through the end of July or June. So we're going to launch a new survey now. I strongly encourage you. I saw some pixels that I recognized when I looked at the attendee list. So I strongly encourage you to sign up. If you get your own data, we'll give it to you. So there's the link that will take you to the survey information, the materials required for the survey, pulseresearch.com/COVID survey. Friends help friends. I put that at the #1 on this slide for 2 reasons. First of all, when we do an on-site training, when we're launching a new client with Pulse sales tools and the data, we almost inevitably ask the sales associates, what are they doing? Why are they doing what they're doing? And while commissions and earning income and paying for bread on my table are always important, almost inevitably it's we want to help our community. We want to help our advertisers. That's the #1 reason. And that's what we want to do. We literally are, all of the attendees, everyone who signed up for this session will get the New England Shopping Research set. It is a 160, 130 page PDF. It's got 160 questions in it. 90 of those questions are shopping intent. I'll talk more about the others in just a minute. But shopping intent is the #1 best-selling, most asked for, powerful data point you can use when going to your market. All of us, all of you, have metrics like circulation or visitor counts or traffic data or uniques, likes, on and on and on. Those are all fantastic, and we need to have those to manage our operations. But if I'm going to a local furniture store or a dress store or a dealership, what they really want to know is, if I invest with local medium, whatever that might be, how many households are going to buy furniture or cars or dresses? That's what I really want to know. And shopping intent provides that. In 99.9% of the time, if you use this data to go out and talk to your local businesses, you will be more valuable to them today than you were yesterday. It is that powerful. Again, everyone is going to get a user guide. It is an 8-page presentation or document, tells you what to do with the data. If you sign up for Pulse Sales Tools, we will give it to you. I'll show you how to get that later. Literally, we will give you Pulse Sales Tools through the end of August, so it's actually longer than just a month. If you sign up today, we could probably have you turned on by Thursday, and you'll have the teaser, the flyer, the call planner, all the prospecting tools. We have 7 ways to help you prospect right now, and they'll all be built around the solutions you use to go to market. So indeed, we're doing that simply because we want to support the industry. We've got a fantastic platform. We love, and we hope they love us, our 500 clients. If 100 of you turn on your system and it helps you, great. If you like it for 6 weeks and you don't want to use them, that's completely fine too. We simply want to help. So let's talk about the data and what we think you should do now. These are the steps you ought to take now. So you're going to have the data by the end of the day or no later than tomorrow. And I'd call everybody that is canceled. In the parentheses are the built-in tools you can take from Pulse to do this. But even if you don't have those tools, you can call them and say, if it's a furniture store and they've canceled because they're closed, you simply say, we reach 1,000 or 2,000, or maybe it's 5,000 households who are going to shop for furniture. Maybe you don't want to advertise right now, but maybe we should start talking about what you want to say to your customers, what you want to say to your prospects. Are you about to open up? What is going to be the plan when you open up? Do you do curbside delivery and pickup, that kind of thing? So you call them and just tell them about the households you reach that are going to buy the goods and services that drive their point of sale system. You will get traction. Clearly, you will go to the advertisers who you have kept, who are still with you, and say, help them validate the great decision they made. Tell them about all the households you reach. Retention is critical when you're using the data. You will see from the data set that you get, I'll have a slide shortly about it as well, that during these COVID times, there are actually 50, it changes slightly by region or state, but 50 categories with more spending today than during normal times. So guess what? We sure better allocate some of our sales resources against them. Built into the platform, if you choose to take advantage of it, is a sales training and certification program. Even if you don't use the platform after our complimentary offer, this is Sales 101. It is a great program. It is good for new reps. It is good for grizzled veterans. I think in many times the conversation with advertisers or customers, I always try to use that word customers because we're doing more than just advertising, right? Is what are they doing to get ready for the post-COVID times? Every state is slightly different. Every region is different. What are you doing to get ready? Should you begin communicating that now? More about lead gen ads, but you can use the data to generate leads. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And I will say this 2 or 3 times this morning. Maybe we'll slop into the afternoon, we'll see. But this is the best time in the history. I've been associated with this injury for 35 years. It's the best time in history to be prospecting. And for you, you'll have data. You'll have a user guide to tell you what to do with the data. If you do nothing else, you should be calling on multiple prospects daily to tell them about the resource you have that will help them. It is a fantastic time to start that conversation. Screenshot of page 1 of the user guide. Again, you're all going to get that. I would love feedback. We've revised this 3 times since March. It is, I think, it's a great step-by-step tool of what to use, but you guys will be the ones who tell me whether it is or isn't. So I'd love your feedback once you get it. My contact information, John Marling, the president of Pulse, the company I represent, is contact information is on the last page. So let me show you some of the sampling of findings. Again, these are just screenshots from what the PDF you will get look like. So I want you to get a flavor for it. It's nothing fancy. It's not an Excel spreadsheet you have to manipulate with some sort of software manipulation tool. It is just print. So at the top of the screen, you'll see the three things I just inserted. These are the bullets that locals want, consumers, right? Updates on the local facts, what resources are available, stories about the impact on the economy and employment. These are the things just consumers want. We learned this in the survey. Restaurants, arguably amongst the hardest hit categories, right? But these are the thing, again, households, readers wanted. They wanted to know about home delivery, what the fee is. Do you have free delivery? Is it drive-through? Is it curbside pickup? So again, if I'm starting the conversation with a restaurant who is about to open up after the last 3 months, these are talking points they would value. Next slide are information from businesses. So hours are different. Is the status? Are they open? I know many of you have probably done "we're open" or "what's open," the kind of the thing just to tell people who's available. Absolutely fantastic service. This is what locals want to know about the businesses. What's going on with them? Clearly, employment needs. We're in the next wave, which we're launching next week. We expect that employment needs to go up because this was done starting in March. Obviously, employment has skyrocketed since then, so we expect the employment number to go up in the next wave. As I mentioned, there are categories that would have increased spending. Here's just the top, 25 or 30. And if you think about it, in most cases, these make sense. You know, local grocery stores, landscaping, wine, my favorite, wine store. Wine sales have gone through the roof over the last 3 months. There are, again, about 50 categories where the shopping has increased. Clearly, if you believe that marketing dollars are associated with increased sales, then this is where you want to focus some of your sales resources. But as a quick reminder, I'll use furniture as an example because I remember this. During normal times, somewhere between 16 and 20% of the households intend to shop for furniture. During these times, it is between 9 and 10%. So it's down about 50%. But if I'm talking to a local furniture store, I know that 10% of the households intend to shop for furniture. That's a very meaningful number. And it's exactly what the local furniture store would want to know. So just a quick reminder, there are categories that will be important to you and to local businesses where, yes, they're down, but there's still a significant portion of shopping happening. Teaser is our word for one of the outputs that come out of Pulse Sales Tools. This is a printed version of what a teaser looks like. So literally, in this mock-up, it is in the insurance category, and we know that in this example, this is an example of a fictitious newspaper. We know that 18% of the households intend to choose or change an insurance agent. So we've multiplied that times the number of households that this fictitious newspaper reaches, and it's 6,000. So if I'm calling on an insurance agent, that's what I lead with. Mr. Bridenstine, however he says that name, we reach 6,000 households who intend to shop for or change insurance agents. Would you like to talk to them? And it is going to be impossible for an insurance agent not to want to have that conversation. In quotes, I put to the left 3 items. Tip of the spear. We have one client who says, I use this as the tip of my spear. I lead with this teaser number and everything follows that. The proposal, the flyer, something else that comes out of the Pulse Sales Tools. And another client says, every call, every day, we lead with this data point. And a different client uses a slightly different model of the same thing. He says, I require, and he's not heavy-handed, but he requires, this is a publisher in Maryland, that each of my sales reps send out 3 teasers, whether a phone or email, every morning by 9 o'clock. He calls it his 3 by 9s. And his goal is for at the end of that week, so that's 15 teasers, that 2 or 3 of those call back or respond to the email. You're not going to get 15 responses, but if you get 2, they're qualified leads because they responded to the information you've sent them. They say, tell me more, or come on by, or I'm interested. So 3 by 9, the goal is to build your active prospect pipeline. What a great thing to do. Second time I've said prospects, right? Fantastic time to be prospecting. So here is a screenshot of what you would see in the online environment if you were in Pulse. So literally we tell you what to say. And it's unbelievable, but it is, so literally you can read this from your screen as you're calling. You can copy and paste slightly different verbiage if you're emailing. And then there's a print icon that you can print, right? So first-time users can live. If you're inside sales, you can just say, hi, my name is Sammy. I trust you. You can read it verbatim. We hope that you get so comfortable with this that it becomes natural. You just look at the big number, in this case, 2333, and you can ad lib, and it's a conversation. If you're face-to-face with an advertiser, then guess what? You look at their furrowed brow or their arms or their steepled fingers, and you can read their body language because clearly we want to get back to those times. So indeed, we tell you what to say, but you're going to want to personalize it. You want to make it sound like you, and I hope you will do this. Again, you don't need Pulse to do this. You're going to have the data. You can look at the numbers in the report you're going to get and do this. Some more data itself. So I picked 2 categories: financial services, open checking, savings, online banking. No surprise, online banking through the roof. Manage your investments. We're all anxious about our investments nowadays. We've pulled all of every bit of equity we now have in cash. We're watching our retirements every day. So again, if you're starting a conversation with a financial planner or financial analyst in the top 50 categories who are up, these are data that will allow you to have a meaningful conversation to reach more of the households that will be important to a financial planner. I just picked a couple of the retail home products. So carpet stores, not so much. Flooring, not so much. But hardware stores, we're doing chores and odds and ends at home, right? We're doing it more than ever. So hardware stores, lumber yards, those kinds of things, painting, lots of shopping. So clearly those ought to be types of businesses you are pursuing now. We have 10, 12 questions I should have counted before I got online about digital solutions. So again, you have metrics, you have all sorts of information about your reach and your traffic data. And those are great and are important. But we asked questions in this case, if you were purchasing a new home, which channels would you use? So we're not talking about traffic here. We're just simply asking, what do you use? And no surprise, Zillow, number 1. Again, there's about 15 here. I just took a screenshot, of 8 or 9 of them here. But if I am going to talk to a local realtor, the point I make with him is, guess what? You might need all of those. Fragmentation is a real problem. You know that more than I do, right? You might consider our local home selling solution, whatever that may be, if you have a home selling solution. So indeed, in almost every digital channel we ask about, fragmentation is a challenge for the customer. We might offer a meaningful solution, or we may be able to manage his digital campaign better for him, depending on the service we provide, right? We ask about clicking on a business in Facebook. 50-50, it kind of varies, but indeed, the point we make commonly is if we are trying to sell against Facebook, is it's not a transactional medium, it's a social medium. Me and all my friends use it to keep track of Sally or Linda or Tara or Susan, right? We don't use it to buy stuff, despite what Mr. Zuckerberg says, right? So indeed, we've got data about the different digital channels. I call these lifestyles, but there's activities, there's things like voting and employment and volunteering and going to church. There's several questions about these lifestyle issues, so I'll zero in on voting. Reasonably important voting year, right? We've got one of the most contested, interesting, well, probably the most interesting campaign of our lifetime, many of our lifetimes. Wouldn't it be great if I'm going out to advocacy campaigns, talking about voting, be able to say, we know that 49% of the households we reach intend to vote in the next national election. You've got data against it. So indeed, lifestyle, all sorts of activity information. somewhere between 16 and 20% of the households we polled have either own their own business or they manage the business. So indeed, 16, you see the number here is 16. So we have 5 or 6 questions about their purchasing intent, whether their capital expenditures are going to be, what channels they're buying from an advertising. So this is in the data. So if I'm going out and talking to an operator and I know that the expenditures are going to be X, I have some intelligence that will help them. It's not a huge data set, but you're going to have 2 or 3 talking points that will make you more of a consultant. That's what we all strive to be, right? We want to be a consultant. We want to help the business. We want to help them navigate through these times. We want them to emerge stronger. So you're going to have some questions that allow you to do that. Just a quick reminder, there are 10 basic demos captured. So ownership, marriage, gender, on and on and on. 10 basic education, household income, 10 basic demo. Not a deep dive, and it will come as zero surprise to those on this call that this, as a newspaper reading, website visiting group, these are more affluent, more educated, more homeowner group than general population. So a couple of words about working from home. The teaser, I use the tip of the spear, every call, every day again, is a fantastic way to start the conversation. Literally, when you lead with information about the business, there are X number of households who intend to shop for furniture or get tattoos or go to the lumber yard. You're talking about them. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a sales call, 4-legged call with a client, and they said, wait a second, that's all about me. And I said, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Why did you do this? And I said, we want to help our community. The only way we can help our community is make sure we're strong. And the only way we're strong is if you're strong. Okay. This is the first time anyone from a media company has come to me with information about shopping. Thank you. I mean, literally, it makes you feel really, really good. So you will be able to do that now that you have this data. Whether you're emailing or virtual, you can use this information. So if it's a virtual, if you're still in lockdown and you're doing virtual, you set up the appointment virtually with the teaser. You get two say, sure, come on by, or sure, let's set up a GoToMeeting or a Zoom call. And at 2 o'clock, you have the meeting and you create your teaser, you create your flyer, you have your digitized presentation information. And the prospect gets on the phone at 2 o'clock and he says, hey, this is Sammy. And you said, hey, this is Susan from the Republican American. And are you in front of your computer? And he says, yes. And open up the link I just sent you and you can walk through the materials. So I don't send it beforehand because he may or she may look at them and reject them or discard them. They probably need some information. Don't send it to them beforehand. I mentioned the call planner. Just let me tell you briefly, in the platform we have is a call planner. It's an activity tracker. So we built this into the system in January, not knowing what this year was going to look like. But it's been a fantastic activity tracker. So almost every organization we work with either has Google Docs or call sheets or Excel spreadsheets or scribbles on, notepads that the boss wants to see, who did you call on today, what'd you talk about, right? This automates that. So literally I can be remote. I click, and I have said I got the appointment, I talked print and digital. He wants me to call him back next week. I took spec card. It would take me 3 seconds to log into my activity tracker, and sales management of that organization will be able to see that immediately. So literally it is a very, very fast activity tracker that many of our clients have said are fantastic. So just wanted you to know that's available, free for 6 weeks. I mentioned the sales certification and training program, 18 modules, step by step, everything from how to get the appointment to close. So indeed, great resource. Hope you will take advantage of it. So beyond shopping, you have the user guide. Everyone's going to have it. I would share it with your team. Some will see some things that get them really excited. Some will, that same exciting point won't resonate with someone else. So I'd share it. You're going to have the findings. I'd also share that with the newsroom. Interesting information. There may be an article too about shopping intent that is publishable and relevant to local readers or website visitors. So just as a thought, we've seen a handful of newspapers do that. I'll give you an example of the digital metrics we have. So you'll see that there's about a dozen of them. Business owners, 6 or 7 questions there, basic demos. The last 2 bullets on this slide are simply this. Even if you embrace this fully, you're not going to sell 100% of the advertisers, right? No one does. That's why we have prospects. That's why best time in the history of the world to prospect, right? But only good happens if you use data and you talk to the business, the local customer, about him or her. You may not sell them. They may be closed and certainly a tough time to sell. But if you are the only media rep talking to them about information that's about them and it's current, you will help with the uncertainty, you'll provide some clarity, and eventually it will redound to your benefit. I promise you. Only good will happen if you do that consistently. I mentioned lead generation. These are an example. So you're going to have data, right? Some percentage of the households who intend to. The one at the bottom of this screen is literally running in the newspaper in Rome, New York, right now. So this is the bottom of a home page. 577 households are looking for an insurance agent. Would you like to know what they plan to insure? So don't you think they're going to get a lead or 2 or 3 or 10 from the local insurance agent? They're probably 50, 30 or 30 to 50 in Rome. And they've gotten some calls from these. So indeed, you've got information about businesses. Run these ads in your newspaper and online and change them up every now and then. So this is just an example. You'll get 1 or 2 or 3 a week, maybe. And if you don't get any, it's still good, because what happens? A sales rep goes out to a financial advisor, and I talked to that gray-haired guy right there who's looking so smart, and he says, I wondered what those ads were all about. So it greases the skids for the conversation. It just makes it easier for the salesperson to begin talking to that prospect. So I've done, a dozen of these sessions, maybe 10 of these sessions, I don't really know, in the last few months. So these are the questions what I get asked most often. Then we'll pause, and I'll be glad to respond to any of your questions. It's up to my boss for the day, Linda, to tell me if there are any questions coming in. So again, these are the ones I get asked more often. So let me just pound through these. I think there's 5, maybe 6. This is number 1, no surprise. I'm just trying to survive. I think there's another line there. I don't have any money. Well, you can't expect me to advertise when I'm closed, do you? And so my knee-jerk reaction is a sympathetic, I understand. Because our worlds are very tough, right? I mean, many of us have gotten PPP loans, but some of us have been on furlough last week. So we are navigating through unprecedented, goofy times too. So sympathy, number 1. We feel your pain. Is there anything you'd like to communicate? That's the word I use far more often now than advertise. Anything you want to communicate to customers or prospects or the community? Are you going to survive? Are you going to open? If there's a beginning of an opening plan, what is going to be your opening plan? What's that going to look like? So indeed, talk about the data, sympathy. Don't try to close them if they're closed right now, right? Tough close. This sympathy, you feel their pain. I love this because it's a perfectly legitimate question. If an advertiser says to me, so how do you know that 8% of the households intend to shop for furniture? Perfectly legitimate question, right? But none of us want to go down the pretend we're a researcher hole, right? I can play that game because I've been a researcher. But we don't want to go there. We don't want to get in methodology or sampling tolerances or margins of error or the fact we got 1,027 respondents in New England. We do not want to go there. So all you have to say is this. We asked our readers, we asked our website visitors, this is what they told us. You're going to remember that, right? I'll say it again. We asked our readers and website visitors, this is what they told us. It's easy to remember. And it communicates beautifully because that's how they source their customers. When Sammy shows up for the first time at a dealership in New England, the smart operator would say, how did you hear about us, right? So it's a great answer to the question. We're planning on running a radio campaign, just as an example. It could be radio, it could be direct mail, it could be anything, should we? So my response to that is you, Mr. Business Operator, are the only person to know what works and what doesn't work. You see what traffic is driven or isn't. So I really don't know how to answer that except to say I do know how many households purchased because of hearing a radio campaign, because it's in the data. Same thing with direct mail, same thing with television. So I have that information. So you evaluate that position, but I do know that, again, I'll give you about 30% of the households, only 30% of the households actually purchased something because of a radio campaign. 70% of the households we reached didn't. So if you really want to reach that household, the audience we do, you've got to consider us. Clearly what we hope is we're planting a seed of discontentment, right? You shouldn't do that radio campaign because 70% didn't buy anything of our audience. So indeed, I don't sell down. I just say, you can evaluate that. You just need us to reach our audience. How do I convince advertisers they're legit? So this is a variation on the second bullet. So the beauty of this is, and I've done this way too many times on four-legged calls. If the advertiser says, by golly, Sammy, I don't believe 8% of the households intend to shop for furniture. And then I would say, by golly, Mr. Ornery old furniture operator, what number do you believe? And he says, I believe it's 6%. So I say, okay, let's use your numbers. I multiply 6% of the households times our 10,000 distribution. We'll call that our print plus web distribution, unduplicated print plus web. So if your number is 6%, there are 600 households that intend to shop for furniture. Aren't those the households you would like to communicate with? Aren't those the households you want to say why you should get their business, not the guy who's around the corner or down the street or around? He says, yeah, don't you want to tell them why your financing is better, or you got more sleeper sofa selection, or why your layaway is a better plan? He says, yeah. So let's reach them. Let's communicate with those 600. So indeed, I can use his numbers. You don't reach my target audience. I'm in love with this response and this rejection. So I say, guess what, everybody? What is your target audience? Very next question. And he explains to me. And then, assuming I have this as a solution, I talk digital. I can build that audience for you. So if it's a furniture operator, I say, tell you what, let's build a furniture shopping audience. We're going to geo-fence around all the competitors in your community. All the contextual searches for furniture, I will send ads to. We're going to do 100,000 impressions a month, and I'm going to build a furniture audience, and we're going to make sure we spend the right amount using the right technology, and then we'll evaluate it at the end of every month. I'll send you a report, and we'll make sure that you get a great ROI. So it's impossible for me to walk away from someone who says, you don't reach my target audience, because I can reach your target audience tomorrow, I promise. And oh, by the way, if I'm a traditional newspaper, I can deliver a newspaper every day or twice a week or once a week as well. And no one who's selling digital marketing services on their own can make that claim. And then, of course, I love this when newspapers are dying. And my metric, and I see this again and again and again, I said, Mr. Furniture Store, are you navigating through times that are different for you today than yesterday? Not just because of COVID, but because of the internet? He says, yes. That's what we're doing. And there's no question it's been a challenge. But you may not know this, but the typical newspaper, and again, I could have the numbers for me, the typical newspaper reaches 10 times more households today than they did yesterday through our digital channels and our alternate products. So newspapers aren't dying. We are just struggling through some challenges just like you are. Now, one could argue that we are not communicating that very well to our communities, but indeed, I love it when I get the newspapers are dying category. So lastly, almost lastly, so these are the 4 things you'll get: shopping, user guide, recommendations, tools. You can sign up for them at pulseresearch.com/support. There are 2 small forms to fill out. If you do them, I mean, things like users and how many households and name and what's your unduplicated web reach. If you know it, if you don't know it, then we will tell you what our best estimate is, because we have 500 clients, right? And then that second link there is for the participating in the next wave of survey. Again, I know NENPA is going to send all of this out to you, but indeed, one of the things you're going to get is a deck, so you don't have to jot this down. And then lastly, there's my contact information, those same 2 links. If indeed there's a question you have after you get this information from Linda and her colleagues, call me. I'd like to consider myself a resource. Call me if you just want to chat. Tell me how you're doing. I will, it's 3 hours early, so don't call at 8 o'clock your time. I may pick up, but please don't. That's it, folks. I want to do 35 minutes, and that's about 35 minutes. So I am all yours, Linda, all yours, those who are on the call. If there's anything else you want to talk about, you have me for an hour and 15 minutes if you want me.
Okay. I have a question. So somebody wrote in and said, how area specific is this survey information that you've compiled? Will we be able to tell customers who we polled? So you touched on that a little bit.
Sure. So let me take a step back. The New England, I think in our case, is 5 states. I should know this off the top of my head, but it's probably your state. The same thing, same definition as NENPA. And that's what we surveyed. We had over 1,000 sample, like I think 1,027. And we have sample from all over New England. So the only way we can get a local survey is if you go to that link, .com/COVID survey, and you promote locally. So through your channels, through your email blast, through your social media, through your web, et cetera, et cetera. And we could get a local sample for you. What we can do is localize the information. And so by that, let me give you, I'll use a furniture. So if you are a 10,000 circulation daily newspaper, I'll use an easy example. Let's just pretend that the math will be easy. And I know that 35% of the households we surveyed in New England say that they intend to shop for at a lumber yard. Then I just do the math. 35 times the households we reach, 10,000, is 3,500 households. So we localize the shopping number based upon your distribution. Ideally, we're talking your print and your web distribution, because web is going to be a significant part of your reach, right? So that's how we localize it, using New England numbers. And so that 35% in New England would be maybe 34% in the Southeast, and maybe it's 37% in Texas. Indeed, it's going to be very, very similar. These numbers do not vary significantly. Everybody thinks they're unique, and there are a few truly unique markets. But the only thing that makes places unique from a research and from a data collection standpoint is Mother Nature. COVID times. We had to do something right now. We do a survey today, and there's a tornado in Lawton, Oklahoma tomorrow. Everything is upended. So Mother Nature, hurricanes, Sandy, in the Northeast from a few years. Those are the things that really, really dramatically change shopping patterns. Everything else is pretty consistent. The only communities where there are some true differences from shopping, things like Hawaii, they don't have recreational vehicles in Hawaii, or things like, it's truly unique because it's 7 islands, right? So indeed, there are a few truly unique because of geography, but most are very, very similar. And again, in that example of lumberyard, and the advertiser says, I don't believe 35%, I believe it's 32%, I believe it's 25%. Use his numbers, use her numbers. What else, Linda? Give me a hard one.
Here's another one. Sammy, if there was only one takeaway from this session that I should do, what would it be?
Sure. My favorite best practice, both pre-COVID and COVID times, is that one I mentioned very quickly, this 3x9. So literally 3 teasers. Again, you don't need the Pulse platform to do this. You can do that just with the data you will have by tomorrow. Send out 3 teasers, call them whatever you want them, 3, tantalizers by 9 o'clock every morning. And I had one ad director in the Midwest say, oh my gosh, I'm not doing 3, I'm doing 50. 50. He says, all my reps have more time on their hands. They ought to send out 50 of these a day. And if my take rate is 10%, then I'll get 5 a day. That would be 25 prospects I'm working in a week. So indeed, 3x9 may be perfect for you, but it's pretty easy to argue that a bigger number would be more valuable, because it's all filling your pipeline. Again, you don't follow up 50, you follow up the people who say, tell me more. The ones who have qualified themselves by responding. So that's my favorite.
Here's another one. Any advice we can give local businesses to afford to take the leap and spend money that they don't currently have to make money by advertising when they can, by advertising when they can and do not believe they can pay for the ad. So any advice to give to local businesses to afford to take the leap to spend money that they currently don't really have?
Well, so let me build on a theme we started this morning. And indeed, if you lead with the number of households you reach who would buy the goods and services that drive the point of sale system for the advertiser, that's the key. If you go out talking that tomorrow, I can't say in all cases because we have clients in New England, right? But in most cases, you're having a different conversation with a local business. You're talking about the households you reach who say they intend to shop for goods and services that are meaningful to that advertisers. That's point one. That's how the conversation should go out. It's easier for them to see that they're talking about, an end, a spend, if you're talking about households who buy goods and services meaningful to them. So that's point one. In most cases, you will reach more households that are going to spend on these categories than they expected. And so if I use that lumberyard example I just did, so if 3,500 households are going to shop for a lumberyard, the other thing it's really important to say to that lumberyard is, do you think they will all shop on one day? And the guy says, are you crazy? Of course they won't. They shop 24/7, 365, because I have the world's greatest website. And it's important that we develop a campaign that promotes the goods and services you want over a long period of time so that they remember you and that you just differentiate yourself from your other lumberyard. So it's the old thin market discussion that many of you on the call will know very, very well. But you say, do you think they're all 3,500 are going to shop tomorrow? The answer is no. And then it cues up the conversation about some sort of frequency. And I'll get on my mini soapbox for a second. I've been out with way too many sales reps who talk product and price and one time. I mean, it worked once upon a time. It don't work now, ladies and gentlemen. So do not do it. Let's talk about frequency, multi-channel, and longer period of time is better. I mean, we default in our platform to 52-week campaigns. Clearly, we don't do a lot of that as an industry, but certainly we ought to, at a bare bones minimum, ought to be doing 13 weeks.
Well, I really love the teases that you put together, and I hope everybody takes advantage of at least trying out the complimentary service that you and Pulse are offering, and that will lead me to this other question. This is the last one that I have, unless somebody else sends in any more. Somebody said, if you and Pulse are offering a complimentary service, I'm curious, what does adoption of the service typically look like?
Oh, I love the question. So I'll give you two responses. First of all, I'm a sales guy at heart, so I can say what I'm about to say. The platform, Pulse Sales Tools, is sales rep proof. It is so easy. I can literally go into that furniture store with my phone and walk out and see that there's 3 stores there and 3 stores there. I call it my T's, right? I've seen that. People do that. And I go tap, 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 and that store down there is a tattoo parlor, and I pull up the number. I know how many households are going to shop for tattoos. And I walk into that tattoo parlor operator with my mask, of course, and I say, we reached 743 households that are going to shop for tattoos. Would you like to communicate with them? Yeah. I go to the next store, which is a shoe store. And, oh my gosh, 2,000 households are going to shop for food. So I start that conversation. So the adoption is fantastic because it's so flippin' easy. And the second point is for those who are contemplating a true CRM. I mean, some people are all over the spectrum on CRMs, right? But this is the training CRM. It is so easy if you adopt this, and then you're actually, adopting Stratica, Brainworks, or Salesforce, or whatever it might be. That adoption curve is going to be much, much, much faster because people are used to using technology to log in outcomes. So the only people that can foul up the use of this is not sales reps, it's the sales bosses who aren't disciplined about the usage. Indeed, we see fantastic usage with this.
Nice. Good. Well, I hope everybody does take advantage of it. It's a terrific time to try the service out. And I don't have any other questions unless anybody has any that they want to send in now. Otherwise, we'll be sending out a recording of this. We'll be sending out the information that Sammy talked about. And you can reach out to Sammy or myself with any questions. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, Sammy. This was really, really terrific.
Well, it was certainly my pleasure. We're wrapping up 8 minutes early, so I give everybody the gift of time, 8 minutes. It's been a thrill to visit with you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, do good things, have fun doing them, okay? We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much.
So long.